Welcome to House of Horrors, where true stories and unexplained events come alive. From the silent deserts of New Mexico, abandoned towns, and forgotten roads, these are real horror cases that still have no answers. Tonight's story is one of them. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is there right now. Turn off the lights. Turn up the volume. And step inside. The House of Horrors. New Mexico is a land of vast deserts, high mountains, and quiet towns. But beyond its natural beauty lies something darker. Over the years, residents, travelers, and workers have reported disturbing experiences that defy explanation. People have seen shadows that shouldn't exist, heard voices when no one was nearby, and felt presences that vanished without a trace. In this video, we explore 5 of the most disturbing things people have experienced in New Mexico. These are true accounts, each leaving those involved with questions they may never have answered. The ghostly figure on Highway 380. Highway 380 stretches across New Mexico like a ribbon of asphalt cutting through endless desert plains. It is remote, quiet, and deceptively serene. The road runs for miles without any lights or towns, and travelers quickly learn that at night, every sound is magnified, every shadow seems to move. In late 2017, a long-haul truck driver named Daniel was making his routine midnight run along this highway. He had driven this route countless times before and prided himself on knowing every turn, hill, and dip. The night was clear, with a crescent moon casting faint light across the desert floor. The radio played softly, a mix of classic rock and low static, nothing unusual. About an hour into his drive, Daniel noticed a figure standing in the middle of the highway up ahead. At first, he thought it was a pedestrian or a hitchhiker, which was unusual but not impossible. He slowed the truck, switching the headlights to high beam. That's when he realized something was wrong. The figure was completely black, taller than a human should be, and featureless. No face. No clothing discernible. It didn't react to the headlights. It simply stood there, unmoving. Instinctively, Daniel swerved slightly to avoid it, expecting some kind of collision or at least a startled reaction. But the figure vanished. The moment his tires left the spot where the figure had been, there was nothing. No person, no object, not even a shadow. The asphalt remained empty, perfectly smooth, as if the figure had never existed. Shaken, Daniel stopped the truck on the shoulder. He scanned the area with a flashlight, the beam stretching into the empty desert. There were no footprints. The dirt and gravel at the edge of the road were untouched. Even the tracks from his truck didn't show any disturbance beyond his own tires. He called the nearest highway patrol station. The officer on duty was polite but skeptical. Highway 380 is a long, empty stretch, the officer said. Sometimes, your mind plays tricks in the dark. But Daniel knew what he saw. To make matters worse, Daniel wasn't alone in experiencing this stretch of road. Local residents and other truckers later confirmed that they, too, had seen a similar tall, dark figure appearing suddenly on the asphalt, only to disappear without a trace. Some even reported their vehicles stalling or radios cutting out at the same location, as if the figure carried some sort of influence over electronics. Daniel refuses to drive Highway 380 at night now. He says the encounter left a lasting impression, not fear of an accident, but of the inexplicable. Something that didn't belong to the physical world had crossed his path. To this day, authorities have no explanation. The highway is safe, the road is intact, and no supernatural claims have ever been officially recorded. But the local lore persists. Those who know the desert warn newcomers to drive cautiously after dark. And some truckers, those who have seen it themselves, will tell you, do not look directly at the figure if you spot it. Some say that even a glance is enough to feel its presence hours later. For Daniel, it was not a story to share lightly. It was a memory, vivid and unshakable, of a presence that shouldn't exist, standing still in the middle of an empty highway, waiting, watching, and disappearing without a trace. The unexplained footsteps in Taos. In the high desert region near Taos, New Mexico, isolation is a constant companion. The mountains and canyons create quiet pockets where the wind is often the only sound, and the night brings an eerie stillness that feels almost alive. In the winter of 2018, a family rented a small cabin on the outskirts of Taos for a week-long getaway. The property was advertised as remote and peaceful, ideal for relaxing and disconnecting from city life. At first, everything was perfect. Snow dusted the peaks around the cabin, the fireplace kept the rooms warm, and the quiet was almost therapeutic. On the second night, however, something unusual occurred. Around 2 a.m., the family awoke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside their bedrooms. The steps were slow, deliberate, and unmistakably human. They seemed to pause intermittently, as though the person was listening or waiting for something. The parents checked the hallway. No one was there. Doors were locked. Windows were closed and secure. Even the family dog, normally curious and protective, refused to enter the hallway, growling softly at the empty space. At first, the family assumed it was a dream or some kind of settling noise in the old cabin. But the footsteps continued for several nights, always around the same time, always deliberate and controlled. No pattern could explain them. No exterior source of noise could account for the sound. Determined to find answers, the parents set up a camera in the hallway. They wanted proof, or at least an explanation. What they captured was far stranger than expected. The footage showed shadows moving in the hallway independently from any person. The shadows would shift slightly, pause, and then vanish. At no point did any figure appear fully visible on camera. The family tried to rationalize it. Perhaps it was a trick of the lighting, the camera catching reflections or shadows in odd ways. But even during the daytime, when they reviewed the footage, the shadows persisted, moving when no one was nearby. The psychological effect on the family was profound. Sleep became difficult. The tension in the cabin grew, thickening with each passing night. By the fifth night, they could hear subtle breathing or whispers accompanying the footsteps, soft enough to be mistaken for the wind, but unmistakably deliberate when concentrated on. Ultimately, they decided to cut their vacation short. They packed up and left the cabin in the early morning, avoiding the hallway entirely. Even months later, the footage remained on the family's phone and hard drives. They showed it sparingly to trusted friends, describing the experience as unsettling in ways that science can't explain. Local residents, when asked about the property, mentioned that previous renters had also reported strange activity, footsteps, cold spots, and fleeting shadows in hallways. The cabin remains on the market. Online listings still describe it as peaceful, remote, and perfect for a quiet retreat. But those who experienced it know that some quiet places are only peaceful when you are willing to ignore what lurks unseen. For the family, the hallway in that house cabin became a symbol of the unexplained, a place where sound exists without a source, shadows move without a body, and footsteps can travel through the night, echoing in memory long after the cabin is left behind. The Voice in the Desert Chuparosa area. The Chuparosa Desert in southern New Mexico is one of the quietest places in the state. Miles of open sand, scattered scrub, and jagged rock formations stretch endlessly beneath the sun, and at night, darkness falls over the land like a thick blanket. It is a place where sound carries unusually far, and isolation amplifies every whisper, every footstep, every movement. In the spring of 2020, a hiker named Marcus decided to explore a rarely visited section of this desert. He was experienced, well-prepared, and traveling alone. His goal was simple: to enjoy the solitude of the desert and photograph its vast, empty landscapes at sunrise. He carried a backpack with water, a GPS device, a flashlight, and a small camera. Marcus was confident in his route and had checked in with friends earlier that day. After several hours of hiking, he settled near a small dune formation to rest. The sun had nearly set, casting long shadows across the desert floor. The air was cool but still dry. Everything was quiet, as it should have been, until he heard it, a voice calling his name. At first, he thought it was someone else exploring nearby. "Hello?" he shouted, expecting a response. The voice answered again, calling his name clearly, calmly, and unmistakably. It was human. But when Marcus scanned the area, he saw no one. No movement. No flashlight. No vehicle tracks. Just the empty desert stretching in every direction. The voice continued, repeating his name in a slow, deliberate cadence. It never sounded urgent or angry, just aware. It seemed to know exactly where he was, speaking with precision, as if watching him from somewhere invisible. Marcus followed the sound instinctively, hoping to find another hiker or someone in need of help. The more he walked, the louder and clearer the voice became. Yet no matter which direction he turned, no one appeared. The terrain itself offered no clues. The dunes were untouched by human passage. There were no footprints that could explain the presence of another person. The desert seemed empty, yet the voice persisted, always calling, always close, yet never revealing itself. After about 20 minutes of this, Marcus noticed something even stranger. His footprints, which had been clear and distinct in the soft sand, were partially erased. Sections of the tracks appeared to be smoothed over, as if some invisible hand or force had brushed over them. The realization hit him: whatever was producing the voice had interacted with the environment in ways that defied logic. Panicked but trying to remain calm, Marcus decided to return to his vehicle. As he retraced his path, the voice stopped abruptly. Silence returned to the desert, heavier and more oppressive than before. Marcus hurried back, glancing behind him repeatedly, but the landscape appeared as empty as it had before the voice began. Once he reached the vehicle, he found his camera had recorded some unusual audio interference. Low-frequency static overlapped with the moments when the voice had been calling. It almost sounded like whispers layered into the recording, indistinct, fleeting, impossible to decipher. Marcus returned home shaken. He shared the audio and his account with a few friends, who dismissed it at first as imagination or stress. But the experience remained vivid in his mind. He had been alone, prepared, and rational. Yet the voice had existed, undeniably real, and its origin remained a mystery. Local desert guides in the Chuparosa area are aware of similar reports. Travelers occasionally hear names being called in empty spaces, shadows moving across dunes, or find footprints that appear and disappear. No one has provided a definitive explanation. For Marcus, the voice serves as a haunting reminder: the desert is never truly empty. Sometimes, it watches. Sometimes, it speaks. And sometimes, it erases all evidence that it was ever there, leaving only a memory that refuses to fade. The disappearing cattle valley near Santa Rosa. In the rural outskirts near Santa Rosa, New Mexico, ranching has been a way of life for generations. Vast pastures stretch under the open sky, dotted with grazing cattle and the occasional lone windmill turning slowly in the breeze. Despite the tranquility, these areas are remote, and the isolation can amplify every unusual sound, sight, or event. In the summer of 2018, a local rancher named Luis was performing his usual evening rounds. The cattle were grazing quietly, the sun was low, and the air carried the familiar scent of dry grass and earth. Luis had tended this ranch for decades. He knew every cow by sight and by behavior, and he knew the land like the back of his hand. As he approached the northern pasture, Luis noticed something unusual. Several cows were missing. At first, he assumed they had wandered into an adjacent field or found a gap in the fencing. But a quick inspection revealed that the gates were securely closed. There were no breaks in the fence, no signs of struggle, and no tracks leading out of the pasture. Confused, Luis walked the perimeter carefully. The soil was firm enough to hold footprints, yet there was nothing, no hoof marks leading to or from the missing cattle. It was as if the cows had simply vanished into thin air. The next morning, Luis contacted neighboring ranchers to ask if anyone had seen the missing cattle. No one had. Security cameras in the area were checked, but to Luis's astonishment, they had all malfunctioned simultaneously that night. There was no video evidence, no explanation, nothing to indicate how the cows could have disappeared. 3 days later, some of the missing cows returned. They appeared unharmed but had strange, long scratches along their flanks. The marks were deep enough to be noticeable but could not have been caused by any known animal in the area. There were no tracks nearby to suggest predators, and the cattle seemed unusually skittish, glancing constantly toward the horizon as though sensing something invisible. Luis began talking to other local ranchers and residents. Several mentioned similar incidents over the years, livestock disappearing for hours, sometimes days, and then returning without explanation. In most cases, the animals were unharmed, but all seemed anxious, and in several instances, unusual markings were found on their bodies. Despite the mystery, authorities offered little explanation. Some suggested pranksters or theft, though this did not align with the secure fencing or the lack of tracks. Others blamed wildlife, though no known predators in the region could have caused the marks or removed the cattle without leaving evidence. The incident left a lasting impression on Luis. He installed additional surveillance, increased nighttime monitoring, and took precautions he had never considered necessary before. But even with heightened security, he remains wary of the northern pasture after sunset. Local folklore offers no clear answers. Some ranchers speak in hushed tones of desert spirits or strange forces that watch over the land. Others tell stories of shadowy figures glimpsed near pastures, vanishing as soon as they are noticed. Luis is not a superstitious man, but even he admits that the disappearance of his cattle defied reason. For the ranchers near Santa Rosa, the land is generous but unpredictable. It provides sustenance, solitude, and beauty, but sometimes, it also holds mysteries that cannot be explained. Cattle may vanish, shadows may move where no one is, and the desert night may carry secrets that leave even the most experienced ranchers questioning what they believe to be possible. Luis will continue tending his land, as generations of his family have done, but the memory of that summer night, when his cattle simply disappeared into the dark, remains vivid and unsettling. The Unseen Watcher near White Sands Missile Range. The White Sands Missile Range in southern New Mexico is a place of wide-open desert, rolling dunes, and restricted military zones. It is both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Visitors and locals alike often describe the area as silent, vast, and almost otherworldly. The desert stretches endlessly, the horizon a blur where sky meets sand, and the sense of isolation is profound. In the fall of 2019, a group of 4 friends decided to hike near the perimeter of the missile range. They were experienced outdoors enthusiasts, familiar with desert survival and navigation. Their goal was to explore areas just outside the restricted zones, capture the unique desert landscape with cameras, and enjoy a night under the stars. The day had been warm and clear, with gentle winds stirring the sand. The friends set up camp near a low dune formation and spent the afternoon photographing the shifting shadows and textures of the desert floor. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the temperature cooled rapidly, and an eerie calm settled over the landscape. Initially, everything seemed normal. They shared stories, prepared a small campfire, and watched the stars emerge across the sky. But as darkness deepened, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. One by one, each hiker began noticing movement out of the corners of their eyes, shadows stretching unnaturally across the dunes. When they turned their heads, nothing was there. The first sign that something was wrong came when their cameras began to behave oddly. Screens flickered, and batteries drained faster than expected. Yet the devices had been fully charged earlier. Then, the group noticed subtle shifts in the sand. Dunes that had been untouched in the afternoon now showed slight impressions, as if someone, or something, had walked over them. Despite the anxiety building among them, the friends tried to rationalize it. The desert could play tricks on the eyes. Shadows could appear to move in low light. Batteries could fail in cold temperatures. But then the feeling intensified. The group felt as though they were being watched. The sensation was so strong that they began speaking in whispers, glancing repeatedly over their shoulders, each convinced that unseen eyes were following their every move. Around midnight, the unease escalated. The hikers set up their cameras in different locations to document the night sky. When they reviewed the footage, they were shocked. Each camera had captured faint, humanoid silhouettes moving between them. The shapes were indistinct, like shadows stretched and distorted, and they vanished the instant anyone looked directly at them. The group decided to pack up and leave immediately. As they walked back toward their vehicle, the feeling of being watched persisted. The static-like interference returned briefly on their radios and cameras, accompanied by a low hum that seemed to emanate from nowhere. By the time they reached the vehicle, relief washed over them. The desert appeared ordinary once again. Yet the memory of the shapes, the static, and the pressure in the air remained. None of the friends returned to that area alone. In the following weeks, locals reported similar incidents near the missile range perimeter, hikers sensing unseen presences, equipment failing inexplicably, and fleeting shadows captured on cameras with no source. None could explain why the desert seemed alive in this particular location. For the hikers, the experience served as a reminder that some places, no matter how open or seemingly empty, harbor mysteries beyond comprehension. The White Sands Desert, for all its beauty, has secrets, unseen watchers that observe silently, leave no trace, and vanish before they can be fully understood. Even now, when the wind shifts across the dunes near the missile range, the hikers remember the oppressive silence, the distorted shadows, and the feeling that someone, or something, was there all along, watching. So guys, thanks for watching House of Horrors. If you enjoyed this descent into darkness, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, so you never miss another nightmare. Signing off.